So you want to get the worst physique imaginable. I don't know why you want this, but let's begin. Let's go with the arms. We can go a few routes here. We can go huge bicep, no tricep, or we can go huge tricep, no bicep. We're gonna go the big bicep route because big triceps look really defined and powerful, and we don't want that. We can also just go the no muscle mass route, but that's boring and no fun. Forearms are pretty aesthetic looking, so we're just gonna ignore those completely, I think. Especially the wrist flexors, because those look pretty aesthetic. Shoulders, do I even have to say? Yes, we're ignoring them completely as well. But if you want, you can train just the front delts, because that's gonna look kind of weird and flat, and that's a good idea in this case. And traps, even though they do look good, proportions matter a lot too. So I'm just thinking we get our traps as massive as possible, but we will ignore the neck. The reason I want the traps so large is because when you have no shoulders and massive traps, it kind of makes you look like a bloated string bean, and that's exactly what I want. But now the core, of course I want the obliques as massive as possible. That's just a given, but I also want our abs to be completely ignored. We're just gonna make our stomach region look pretty flat and ugly, as well as unshapely. By now you're probably curious, what would this physique actually look like? But you'll have to be patient. Now the back, do I have to say, yes, we're ignoring the lats, and yes, we're ignoring the whole back, but maybe, just maybe, we'll train just the bottom part. You have to keep in mind, my plan for this is a pear-shaped type body, kind of a pyramid. But anyway, lower body. We want our glutes as massive as possible, which will also enhance our bottom heavy appearance, and quads and hamstrings, even though they aren't bad muscle groups. It's just in this case, getting them as developed as possible will ruin our physique even more, which is the end goal. But calves? No, we're not training calves, no. Yet still, if you do want some muscle on your lower legs, we can target the tibialis because it has no aesthetic significance pretty much, and it might also ruin our proportions even more since we have no calves down there, and having muscle just on the front of the shin, well, that's gonna be pretty weird. Now let's construct what we have so far. Here I got the sumo guy from Baki, not shredded, no V-taper, but still not a bad looking guy. But now let's apply our training advice on him. And what we get is kind of what I was going for, as I told you, a bottom heavy pyramid type appearance. I hope you're not laughing because this is a very serious training protocol. In fact, if anybody watching this wants to take that training advice and apply it, please tell me how it goes. Yet we're still neglecting one big thing. We covered muscles, but we did not cover fat. Obviously being completely obese is unaesthetic, but it's also cheap. I want to give you advanced advice on how to be ugly, and not the advice most Americans are already following. Which is why let's stay at the 25% body fat range. I do have one thing in mind though, and that's the fat distribution. I want more fat in our midsection, and preferably I'd like us to even get gyno as well. For that, we're gonna need a diet high in trans fat, as well as one very high in estrogenic substances like phytoestrogens, plastic, all of that, because when our estrogen increases high enough, that's when we'll actually develop the gyno, which is our end goal. The best way I can think of accomplishing this is moving to America and eating out at McDonald's every day, but not just McDonald's, because even restaurant food is still cooked in oils that have plenty of estrogen to spare, which is why you can just kind of eat out every day. It doesn't necessarily matter where. That should get your estrogen pretty high, and make sure to keep your testosterone low too. I don't have an illustration for what this fat distribution might look like, so instead, if you live in the United States, go to a mall, look around, and you'll see many people like this. Now, I told you how to get the worst physique. Sure, we covered muscle, fat, but bone structure plays a role too, even though we don't have that much control over it, especially after puberty. But that doesn't mean we can't talk about it. So the collarbones, otherwise known as the clavicles, I want those narrow, and the hip bones wide, which to be fair is probably gonna happen to you anyway if you had my previous diet plan as a teenager. It would also be preferred if our hands are small. Plus, let's have a really long torso compared to our legs. And you know what? Tiny feet too. I could also say long neck, short arms, but this is getting a bit ridiculous. Now, one final tip I have is definitely don't do cardio. I noticed when I started doing cardio years back, I got more vascular, and that overall makes you look better. So if you want the worst physique, do not do that. And with all this advice combined, all you have to do now is make a Tinder profile and enjoy the success. I'm rooting for you.